I live in Nebraska, in a place where tornadoes happen a lot. We do drills for bad weather that have been happening for a long time. When I was in middle school in the 2000s, we used to gather in the halls with the lights off once a month to practice what to do during a tornado. It felt strange to me as a guy, like everyone could see my back, but I knew it was important to follow the rules. I was really scared of those practice drills more than I was scared of a real tornado. They felt like too much, but sometimes we had them more frequently because of the crazy weather here. Then one day in May, when I was in 7th grade, something really serious happened. My classroom was in one of those temporary buildings nicknamed the shacks. They weren't actual shacks, just weak buildings to hold all of us students. When there was bad weather, we had to quickly go to the main building, leaving all our stuff behind, even our backpacks. We'd sit on the floor, cover our heads, and wait for the storm to pass. It took longer than usual. Once, something big happened. The wind got stronger, alarms were loud, and everyone went quiet. It felt strange and spooky. At first, it was kind of thrilling, you know? Going through a big storm without worrying about our houses was sort of interesting. I even sort of wished for a tornado, just to make the strange choir teacher's warning seem worth it. That feeling didn't last. Suddenly, everything changed and got really scary, even though it was still daytime. The wind became really strong, banging doors like they wanted to get inside. Then there was hail, hitting the door hard, like it was raining rocks. Calm hallway became really noisy and crazy. Everyone felt really scared. Suddenly, we heard a loud noise, like a train, coming closer. It was a tornado. We knew it was getting closer and closer. Some kids started crying, and even the teachers, while trying to calm us down, sounded scared too. When the walls shook, everyone, even the teachers, hid to stay safe. We all felt scared, but we stuck together. No one cared about looking weak. We just wanted to be okay. The air felt weird, like a tornado might be close by. It was crazy outside. Stuff was hitting the doors and flying away. It felt like the world was getting tossed around. Scariest part was when the windows broke and the storm came inside. We couldn't get away from it. It seemed like the school might break apart, and we might go flying with it. I bit down on my teeth hard and said a prayer. All of us did the same thing. Surprisingly, it actually worked. Right when we were sure something bad was going to happen, it got quieter instead. At last, we could relax and breathe normally again. The scary signs went away as the storm ended. The sun showed up, and we waited a little while longer to make sure it was safe before we could leave. I could finally get up. My legs hurt, but I was fine. The school was still okay. But when I went outside, I saw the actual damage. The buildings that were there for a little while are not there anymore. I can't see anything left, only some broken pieces and pipes sticking out of the ground. All the things I had in my bag, like my books and diary, are gone too. If I had stayed in my classroom, I would have disappeared along with everything else. When I was young, I almost experienced something really frightening. That feeling stays with me. Now, I take bad weather very seriously. It's a normal part of where I live, but I won't move away from this place called Twister Town. And the most surprising part is, there was this science teacher, Ms. Jenkins, who was really good at predicting storms. She'd often make jokes about it, but on that particular day, she was super relaxed. When I asked her how she knew about the storm coming, she just smiled and said, "Sometimes you feel it in the air." What she said stayed in my mind. It wasn't about ghosts or magic. She just noticed nature's hints. After that day, Miss Jenkins became like a legend. People talked quietly about her storm feelings and how she always sensed when things were going to get crazy. It made me start noticing things more in the world around me. Sometimes there are people who notice things differently or see things that others might miss. It's not about spooky things or anything wild. It's just about being alert, looking and listening to what nature might be telling us. In high school, when I was in my second year, I'd walk to and from school every day. It wasn't far, just a 10 to 15 minute walk. I made sure to stay on the sidewalks to be safe. One early morning, About 7:30 a.m. when I was leaving home, I saw a strange, dark gray Audi parked near the sidewalk. A guy, who was a little older than me, rolled down the window on the passenger side of the car. He said he knew my friend Lily and offered to give us both a ride to school. I wasn't sure about it, so I said no politely and suggested doing it another time. Something didn't feel right, so I wanted to check with Lily before agreeing. He looked a bit disappointed, but left after a while. As I was going to school, I texted Lily about something. When I reached my first English class, I got her message back. She didn't know who the guy was, and that made me feel even more worried. During our class, about 30 minutes in, our school suddenly went into lockdown. We were asked to gather at the back of the room and turn off the lights. Everyone was really nervous because we didn't know what was going on. It felt like a really long time before they finally ended the lockdown, but we were all still really tense and worried. After the school day began, we found out that someone we didn't know had somehow gotten inside. This caused the school to lock down. They were able to leave without being caught, which made everyone feel unsure and worried. Students started talking quietly about what happened, making the whole place feel spooky and strange. When I left school and was heading home, I saw the same Audi car again. I felt really worried because something didn't seem right about the person driving it. I started walking faster, but he called out to me, saying he had been at the school before. That made me feel really scared and uncomfortable. He began boasting about causing the lockdown and ran after me when I started running away. I couldn't run faster than him, but luckily, something good happened. A car I knew was passing by. It was my friend from school, and his name is Chris. I quickly went to his car, and luckily, he let me inside and locked the doors. Another person tried to get in, but they couldn't. Chris started driving while I told him what happened and called the police. He made sure I got home safely before leaving. Later that day, the police found the guy. It was really surprising because he had secretly been following me for days. What's even scarier is that they found out he wasn't a student like he said. He was actually in his mid-20s pretending to be one. Something interesting happened during the school lockdown. I heard Lucy and Max talking quietly. Max saw someone near the lockers before the lockdown, and Lucy was surprised because that same person tried to be friends with her by saying they knew her friend Lily. My heart was beating fast. Things began to make sense. This strange guy had focused on lots of students, telling them similar things about knowing their friends. It made me feel scared, thinking about how close this situation was. It gave me goosebumps. When the police were told about this, they looked into it more. They discovered that the guy had pretended to be a student in different schools before. Each time, he'd make up a story about knowing someone there. Even though they caught the person, finding out about it made us really scared. We felt uneasy knowing someone was sneaking around, trying to fool students into trusting them. We were happy he got caught, but it took a long time for us to stop feeling worried. When I remember that scary memory from the past, I feel that our regular, safe routines can suddenly become risky. I'm really thankful to Chris for being there when I really needed help. Before I continue to the next story, if you are interested in earning from YouTube without showing your face, or without making videos by yourself using artificial intelligence, like the video that you are watching right now, then I have a special free training for you. Check the first link in the description below to get instant access. Everything happened when I had to go to a special Saturday class called the review session. It was kind of like an extra class on a weekend, sort of like being in detention. Back when I was in 11th grade, something happened. I made a mistake by forgetting to give back a bunch of school books. These were books we borrowed for different classes, and we were supposed to return them before the semester ended. But I messed up and even lost one of the books in my house. I eventually found it and returned all the late books, but I still ended up having to go to a Saturday review session as a consequence. It wasn't so bad, really. It was just one room, like a place to study. Our teacher, Mr. Johnson, sat at his desk, making sure we behaved. Sometimes, he'd let us know the time or help us if we had questions. My mom took me to school before 8 a.m. The classes started then and lasted until noon, but not everyone had to stay the whole time. I was lucky because I only had to be there for 2 hours, so I could leave at 10. Some kids had to write papers or do extra homework, but I had to write about why it's not good to bring back library books late and finish some other homework. When I arrived, only 4 other students were there. I knew 2 of them, but the other 2 I didn't recognize. The ones I knew weren't really good at school. They often missed classes or didn't finish their work. I usually did well in school, so I felt a little awkward being with them. At 8 a.m., Mr. Johnson shut the door and had a chat with us. After that, he started using his computer. I worked on my paper first, then did my homework. By 9:30 a.m., I completed everything and picked a book from the shelf to read. After I began reading, Mr. Johnson said he needed to go to the bathroom and asked if we'd be okay without him. He left, and a little while later, another kid also left. I didn't really think about it and just kept on reading. Just 5 minutes after that, the school said we had to stay put and not move. It was strange because there weren't many people around on a Saturday, and only one door was open. We remembered what to do during a lockdown. We need to shut and lock the doors, turn off the lights, and sit quietly at the back. But our teacher wasn't there. We looked at each other, not sure what we should do. Then, someone said we should close the door. I went and locked it, and someone else turned off the lights. We talked and wondered what was going on. If Mr. Johnson came back, we'd open the door for him, but he had the keys, and we didn't hear anything from the halls. Whatever was happening could have been anywhere in the school. After waiting for a bit, nothing happened. Then, we heard someone trying to open the door, maybe thinking it was our teacher. I quickly went to check, but nobody was outside. I went back to my seat, feeling confused. Soon after, we heard yelling from far away. Then someone knocked loudly on our door. I looked through a little window and saw the kid who had left our class earlier. He wanted to come back in, but just as I was about to open the door, I heard shouting from down the hall. Someone said the police were coming. That kid ran away really fast. We were really confused in class. Then, after about 5 minutes, the lockdown stopped, and some police officers came knocking. We opened the door, and they told us what happened. It turns out, when Mr. Johnson went to the bathroom, another student went after him and hurt him. The janitor heard it, and that's why we had the lockdown. Then the student who did it ran away. I'm happy I didn't let that student in. Mr. Johnson got hurt, but he's all right now. He had a small head injury and had to go to the hospital. I don't know why that student was upset with Mr. Johnson, but I heard he got in trouble before for fighting. Guess what happened? Police showed up, and one of them looked really strange. He wanted to know if we had seen another student from our class who left before everything got locked down. But surprise, that person wasn't even a student. They snuck in and pretended to be one of us. Policeman said that the pretend student was actually a young person who was wanted by the police. He dressed like a student to fit in and picked the school for a reason nobody knows. If he hadn't left when the police were talked about, things could have gotten very dangerous. Something really surprising happened that shocked us all. It was a super crazy morning. After that, the school made security stronger because of what happened. I didn't go to the Saturday review session anymore. Thinking about it now, it was a really crazy day. I was happy Mr. Johnson got better and that we stayed safe during all that unexpected craziness.